So in this problem, we are to use transformation to map one figure onto another figure. And let's take a look at figure 0. Figure 0 is A, B, C, D, E, so we're going to label that figure 0. And then we need to map it onto J, K, L, M, N. So the first transaction that we need to do is probably to reflect the figure over the y-axis because it looks like the figure is kind of like facing the wrong direction. So first thing I'm going to do is a reflection across the y-axis. And let's go ahead and begin by mapping the original points. We have point A, which the coordinate is at 2, 7. And then point B is at 4, 6. C is at 3, 4. D is at 0, 4. And finally, E is at -1, 6. Now we need to realize that when we are reflecting something across the y-axis, we are actually just making the coordinate x negative. So if you have a point that is here, you're going to have let's say this is 3, you're going to end up with -3 for reflecting across the y-axis. So that's how the reflection works. And so therefore we're going to just make all of the x values right here negative. So that will be -2, 7, -4, 6, 3, 4, -3, 4 I mean, and 0, 4, and then 1, 6. It does not change the value of 0, so it's still going to be a 0. And let's go ahead and map that point, those points onto the coordinate plane here. So we have -2, 7 is here. Then we have -4, 6. And we have -3, 4. And we have 0, 4. And then 1, 6. And if we connect that, we will have the new figure. And we will call this figure 1 because that is the first transaction we did. And it looks like we have I might have made a mistake on the last move here, the point. I actually think I have a 0.15 instead of 1.6. It should be right here. So let me make a new graph. So this is the new figure for figure 1. And it looks like our figure needs to be smaller because it looks like it needs to be smaller. So we're going to do a second move, a dilation. And it looks like it needs to be a ratio. This is 3 units. This is 1.5. Looks like it needs to be a half scale. So we're going to multiply all of the coordinates. So let's transfer all of the image points from the last transaction is now going to become the pre-image point for our new. So let's just repeat that. And we're going to multiply everything by a half unit. So it's going to shrink into a half unit. And we're going to start getting a decimal now. So those are the half units now. Let's go ahead and map that. Let's use a different color. So we're going to map -1 and then 3.5, which is right there. And then -2, 3, and then 1.5, 2, and 0, 2. I think that should be a -1.5. 2 instead. And then we have 0, 2, and let's remove that point. And then 0.53 is where our last point is. So this is our new figure. And we are almost there. So we look like we just need to shift or translate the figure about half a unit to the right and then 2 down. So from here, half right, 2 down is where I need to be. So I'm going to write down my third step transformation. It's going to be a translation of 0.5 unit to the right and 2 down. And using math coordinates, it's going to be x plus 0.5 because we're moving to the right, and then y minus 2. So we just need to do the math. And again, these the image points is now going to be our pre-image. So we have -1, 3.5, -2, 3, -1.5, 2, 0, 2, and then 0.53. Now we're just going to do the math. For the x coordinate, we're going to add half a unit for the x. And these are the new points. You should end up with -0.5 and 1.5, -1.5 and 1, -1, 0, 0.5, 0, and 1, 1. And let's see if these indeed match up to our final figure, because as you can see, we already have the final figure in the picture here. So let's see if these points do match up to what we're supposed to have. So we have -0.5, 1.5. That seems to be consistent with what we have. So we're back to this point. And then we have -1.5 and a 1, which is that point right there. And then we have -1, 0, it's right there. We have 0.5, 0, and right here. And then we have 1, 1. So that seems to be consistent with our final figure. So we now know that those are the correct coordinates that we're supposed to have. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3 transactions for the transformation to go from the original of ABCDE to the final destination of JKLMN, and that's the end of this problem.